studying gharial since the early 70s. This is a South Asian species, widely distributed, now about a 20th the number of animals, from about 20,000 plus to maybe 1,000 or less today, representing only about 5% of the initial population. Existing today in about 6 breeding groups and 8 minor occurrences. The main location is the Chambal River. This is sort of a ravine landscape. The Chambal runs for almost 1,000 kilometers, joins the Gangetic system via the Yamuna. And the Chambal is home to about 1,600 gharial, roughly anywhere from 70 to 90% of the global population, depending on how you count it. We've been fortunate, or I've been fortunate, because I haven't been able to get back to India since late December 2019, but the team over there has managed amazingly well, even with all the COVID restrictions. This is Jalabdeen, and we've been continuing our annual surveys of the adult and essentially the whole population during the January, February basking period when the animals are easy to see. And this is the breakdown of the roughly 1,600 animals on the Chambal, about 500 nesting females, 100 males, and 1,000 smaller animals. We've also focused on the nesting, the reproductive behavior, so we've been able to continue our surveys, not only in 2020, but we're continuing as well in 2021. This is Pankaj with at a nest site with about 40 nests. You can see some of the nest craters behind him, and the hatch has just started. So on the Chambal, we end up with roughly 10 to 12,000 hatchlings coming in from anywhere from 400 to 500 nests a year. And we have pretty good data for the last 4 or 5 years, both the population counts as well as the nesting counts. We've tried to focus most of our effort in the last several years on the upstream section. Here on the left side, oval circled, probably about 1/3 of the population occurs in that upstream section versus 2/3 of the population in the downstream section, where we've spent most of our earlier time in the previous decade. So this is a little bit of a noisy slide, but you can see the location here: Delhi, Agra, and the Chambal runs, essentially, it's this 425 or 450 kilometer stretch where most of the animals occur and where most of the breeding is happening. We've established an upstream base. You can see the actual base in the lower right-hand corner. And we've begun to spend more time up in that area. This is the catching team and 2019, and we've been working with those fishermen for the last, we have 11 catch tag operations since 2009. Here you can see some of the tags, and we've recently started to put GPS tags that transmit the data back by satellite at various intervals. And these animals are hard enough to catch so that we usually end up tagging them at least twice with just a regular conventional VHF transmitter. This is the catching in 2019. We ended up catching a 4.8 younger male, but he was quite heavy. And this year, the field team got along fine without me, and they managed to catch a 5.3 meter male, and both of these males are located within about a 10-kilometer stretch in the upstream section, and they both have satellite tags. So actually, I can sit here in my house in St. Paul, Minnesota, and track the animals every 2 or 3 days. I get a GPS locations and a KML file and can view where the animals are. So actually, I tell the field team where some of the animals are if they're having a hard time finding them. But we've mostly, and we've had an interesting time now with these two satellite tag males, because within a 10 to 15 kilometer stretch, they separated out, and there are a total of about 7 males in this assemblage, with satellite and junior males associated with 2 major breeding groups. One on the downside, you can see here with the orange dots, that's one of the males' location. And on the upside here where the green is, those are the 2 main breeding groups this season. But really, we focused primarily on tagging adult females. We've had pretty good luck. This is our landlord in the upstream section, Rajaram. He and his 6 brothers own and operate a huge stretch of riverside area, and they've managed to keep the sand miners from removing a lot of the sand. So some of the traditional nesting has been occurring there, and fortunately for the time being has been protected. But we got satellite tags on some of these animals, and we only tagged 3 animals with satellite tags the first year in 2019. And one of our females took a long journey up a side tributary that wasn't known to contain gharial, and we actually were able to document nesting on the edge of a national park. So here we're looking from the national park. You can see these numbers in the foreground of the 5 nests, and there are actually 6 nests, including the female we had tagged. And in the far distance, you can see the Chambal River. So this is the Kuno River. And it's a national park that was set up for lions. They still haven't stocked it with lions because the folks in Gujarat don't really want lions to leave that state. And so there's sort of an inner squabbles within India about the location of lions. But in any event, it's a protected area. And the interesting thing is, once the nest hatched, the female that we had a tag on actually moved about 60 kilometers up into the national park. And so this was a very valuable addition that we were able to add a whole tributary on the Chambal that was unknown before to be important for gharial. There was another gharial that actually lived in the downstream and moved to the midstream section. And here she moved about 165 kilometers up to an area where there was some rapids. And in those rapids, she stopped. And then subsequently, she joined a breeding group just below the rapids. And then she moved upstream about 60 kilometers to where she's nesting presently. But one of the most interesting things we found with this satellite, with the tagging, is by catching in the upstream, we were able to recover a juvenile that was tagged in 2013 in the downstream. So this is a movement of about 260 kilometers, but we really think it's essentially a shift of residency, because this is over a 7-year period. So this is what the animal looked like in the lower left when she was initially caught, 1.3 meters, and she was recovered as a subadult, 2.6 meters and about 55 kg. Still had the radio on her and still had the notching and the tags. We're also doing community work. So this is started in the upstream, and this is the Rajasthan Forest Department, a capacity building program run by Ashutosh Tripathi, who is a turtle biologist who's been working with us on the Gharial project. And this is Dramendra Kandel from Tiger Watch in Ranthambore, where they have a big community program monitoring tigers. And so he is also interested in collaborating with some of the Gharial work. Lunch, Rajasthani style. We're also able to tag some head starts. So one of the interesting things is what's happening to these animals that they're dumping back into the Chambal. Some of these programs are essentially started, and it takes a long time to sort of turn them off. And as you can see with the number of hatchlings, there's probably little need, but one of the things we're finding is that these head-started animals that are introduced as juveniles essentially have been predated largely by mugger. We've also been able to tag some hatchlings. Here you can see a little radio on a hatchling. And some of the observations associated with these hatchling creches involve documenting feeding as well. It's also been exciting to have participants from the EDGE program. Jailab Dean here has been working with us on the Chambal, but the EDGE program had about 17 participants in 2018 when the South Asian contingent was added, and three of the folks are working on Gharial. So we have Ranjana from Nepal, and also Ashish Bashal. Ashish has been working in the Babai, and he's actually been able to document a nesting population in the Babai. That was our sixth population that we speculated might be a breeding population, but we didn't know until last year. And Ranjana has been working with Phoebe. Phoebe Griffiths is working in Chitwan on an Oxford DPhil, and she's tracking Gharial on the edge of Chitwan National Park. So the work that we've been doing has been dependent on a lot of support. We particularly appreciate the support of the US-based zoo. The Prague Zoo has also been a major supporter. And more recently, we put together a little 3-minute video. And here are some of the main supporters: Chicago Zoological Society, Montgomery Zoo, Berlin Zoo, and also the CROC Fest have been extremely important in providing the funding to allow us to do the satellite tagging, for instance. I just want to mention a few other things. We're working with some of the other students. This is Gaurav Vashitha, and Gaurav has been working in Katrina Ghat and Corbett, the other two, probably second and third most important populations. And one of the things he found is that the river reservoir population is experiencing some real difficulty in natural nesting areas. Essentially, the reservoir areas are being increasingly vegetated, and there's a loss of sandbank habitat. These are the populations, Katrina Ghat and Corbett as well. And one of the things that they've done in Katrina Ghat is essentially build sandbanks. And the interesting thing here is that the Gharial almost immediately adopt the sandbanks within a couple of days, and they've nested, and they got double the nesting. They tried to remove vegetation. That didn't work very well, but the addition of the sand was a real plus. And these river adapted species seem to, not only the Gharial, but also things like Kachuga, Batagar Kachuga, use these as well. And it turns out Acutus apparently has people working with Acutus have also found that Acutus nesting can be facilitated this way. We've also tried to increase our media presence. So this is Animal Logic. They did a little 7-minute thing. We participated with some footage. We've got a little 3-minute video, 3.5-minute video. We've got it translated into a bunch of South Asian languages, as well as most of the major European language groups as well. And those are all available on a YouTube channel, Gharial Ecology Project. And I just want to end by mentioning there's going to be a major half-hour feature program as part of the second season of On the Brink. These are the two main guys, Pankaj and Gharial. Pankaj is featured in the movie. He's been our main tracker. He's been working with us ever since we started back in 2008. And Gharial joined a couple of years ago and has added a big component and is currently sort of directing the project. So I talk with him almost every day as we plan the field activities. Here they are examining using drones to validate the population surveys that we're doing in the early part of every year. And the last thing I just want to add is that we have started an NGO now within the local community on the Chambal called Gharial Local and Global. And we're slowly trying to develop an Indian funding base using corporate social responsibility, CSR funding within India. And we're having some luck with that. And with that, I think I'll stop. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.